Today we're going to talk a bit about creative mental health and imposter syndrome. So to start us off, can you tell us a bit about your own journeys with mental health and how it has shaped who you are today?
Who's going first?
Well, for me, I'll start when I was younger. Mental health was just not talked about. Never even heard the word mental health put together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't apparent to me. So I spent a lot of my teenage years dealing with stuff, but not understanding what I was dealing with. So it wasn't mental health to me. It was just, this is life, or you kind of just avoid it. And then in my early 20s, I understood it was mental health, because now it was being spoke about. Now it was on social media. Now we were having the conversations. So the first time I really remember mental health being apparent to me was probably when I was 14 years old. I was in secondary school, I thought I was living my life and, having the best time. But I've always dealt with something called eczema. And my mom, bless her, took care of it all my life up until my teenage years. And then, we have to kind of just learn how to do everything ourselves. And it really flared up and got really, really, really bad during my teenage years. Now, I was someone who was a dancer, was very active in all the activity clubs. But once it happened, once it came, I stopped doing everything, and it really affected me as a person, my personality, my confidence, absolutely everything. So I went through a very depressive stage where I would go home, draw the curtains. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew I didn't want to look at myself or whatever it is. And obviously now I know I was going through depression. Yeah. At that point, it was, this is just how I'm dealing with it, because I don't like myself. And my confidence went from probably like 100% to probably 10%. I did not like who I was. I would not look at myself in the mirror. I would avoid doing anything where I would have to see new people. And I just knew that, it was a big thing for me, and it was something that I would have to kind of learn how to deal with. So when I started going to university, start finding yourself, as they say, I started really speaking to myself positively. Yeah. And I remember just saying, like, Belinda, you are beautiful. Like, you can do anything you want. And that's what really got me through, my mental health and dealing with eczema. And that's something I still deal with. But because of the way that I was speaking to myself and the way that my coping mechanisms really did help with that. But I would say, that is the first time I remember me dealing with mental health is my teenage years, because I wasn't given the tools. I wasn't told this was mental health. I dealt with panic attacks when my parents separated. Again, I didn't know what that was. I just thought I was breathing really heavy and would just kind of avoid it. And I didn't want to talk about it either, because I was like, I feel like if I tell my mum, I'm going to get in trouble because I've done something wrong. Yeah. So there was a lot of different things that were happening. Anxiety. I wouldn't leave the house. I would open the door, close the door. But I didn't know what that was because the conversations weren't happening. Well, I'll pass it on to someone else.
Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people don't know this about me, but I studied in India for 2 years, from year 7 to year 9. And then when I came back, obviously cultural shift changes, I had to adapt quite quickly. So when I came back from India, I moved, I'm born and bred in London as well, so then we were constantly moving, so from London to Birmingham. And then when I moved to Birmingham, I was in year 9. So year 9, year 10, I would say I was struggling a lot with adjusting, transitioning, friendship groups, I would say, even with family and stuff. Being away in boarding school for 2 years, you kind of learn how to cope with yourselves. But then when you're managing other people's emotions, when you're managing so much things around you, it starts to get overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So then I was referred with anxiety from my GP to CAMS, which I don't want to start saying stuff, but it wasn't the greatest. And got discharged after 2 sessions, and then went to uni again, similar to Belinda, and again transitioning, again coping with finances, work-life, study balance. I was holding down 2 jobs whilst working. Mm-hmm. So it was, again, overwhelming feeling, managing your thoughts and emotions. I'd say I started to develop myself. So I started to look into personal development. I started looking into concepts like mental toughness, resilience, emotional intelligence, doing psychology and counselling. does help, because you're being able to be in a room full of people who, you've got that safe space to talk to. Then after I graduated, I started just managing my mental health very, very well, because again, I used the right tools. I went to hypnotherapy, I went to counselling, I constantly had supervision. There was a lot of good support system around me. One thing that I would say about my past mental health, it was just learning who I was and finding that innate ability for me to manage all of those negative emotions and thoughts. So that's my little journey on mental health.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I suppose it lands on me. So in regards to mental health, I think there's this common notion that mental health is something that when you're younger you either like fix and then you're good or something. But for me, mental health is something that's constantly like maintained. And growing up as the eldest daughter of an ethnic household, you know how that goes. Coming from a background where, similar to you, mental health is a taboo. Nobody really discusses it. My parents fled civil war, and obviously there's all of those connotations around the impacts that has on mental health. So seeing them discard the concept of mental health led to me, when I was younger, really struggle with addressing something. Only when you know something exists is when you can address it, or when you understand the terms for what you're going through is when you can actually try look for solutions around it. So I think I definitely really struggled when I was younger. But as I grew older, I think one of the things that has really helped me when it comes to mental health is looking for that strong sense of community, that strong sense of sisterhood. And that's allowed me to be at a stage, thankfully now, where I understand it's constant maintenance, constant little things that you do that preserve and help you as a person deal with your mental health and ensure that you're happy and thriving. So I suppose that's my story.
That's really good. That's really good. I think it's been a definite constant topic that mental health wasn't really something spoken about. And through social media and through time, it's become something more normalized. It's become a conversation. Creatively, how has being creative helped you on that journey? Have you found it therapeutic? What's your understanding of what being creative is?
Shall I go first?
Yes.
I think for me, creativity, I'm a poet, and I always say poetry is what saved me. I have writings from as far back as 8 where I'm just writing and just trying to rhyme words. In school, I was always that person that was at the class rapping about biology. Who raps about biology? But that was me. And I always felt it was a lifeline in essence. And it's become my passion, and being able to offload these feelings that I didn't understand or I was trying to understand through words and through creative mechanisms really saved me. And now, even to this day, when I do feel an inclination of any emotion, I go back to my notepad and pen. I don't like the phone. I don't like the notes thing. I'm a bit old fashioned. So I go back to my pen and paper and I sit and I write. And I try to craft these stories and all of these things. And that helps me with my mental health today. So creativity definitely was a lifeline for myself.
That's really good. I agree, as a poet as well. Definitely being able to put everything down on pen and paper. I use Noise app, I'm sorry. But being able to just, it's technology. It's there. So being able to just really do it on the bus or whenever, it's really helped me with my anxiety. I also have eczema, so I definitely understand when you have a tough day, you get flare-ups and stuff. So it kind of helps calm you. It's very therapeutic. How about yourself, Yas and Belinda?
I'm very similar to you. From probably when I was 8 years old, I used to make these fake businesses. So I had Kitchen Direct, Salon Direct. The other day I drove, I think, I don't even know, I was driving and I saw somewhere called Kitchen Direct and I was like, I need to sue them. That was my business. But from a young age, I was creating businesses and making little menus on my little paper and stuff like that. And since I've kind of noticed since going to university, I myself as well had 2-3 jobs. I don't even know how we do stuff like that. But I really found business and working my outlet, then turning into having my own business, which is my creative outlet. So I work a full-time role as a mentoring manager, but as soon as that finishes, I'm down to the podcast studio. Whether I'm just sitting there doing some stuff on Canva, whether I'm moving around furniture, dealing with new clients, that's my creative outlet. So as much as I have and enjoy my 9 to 5, my creative outlet is what really helps my mental health and helps me to keep sane, like because sometimes we can get so caught up in the day-to-day of doing everything and we forget ourselves. And I think 100%. Our creative outlets are ourselves. So
yeah, I am nothing like my other panelists. I can't draw, I can't write, I can't rap, can't rhyme, nothing like that. I would say my creative outlet recently, so since I was 21, I've been involved in investing into properties, rental, Airbnbs, etc. as another means of income, because let's face it, one stream ain't enough.
Yeah.
So when it came to renovating houses, when it came to decorating anything, when it came to furnishing, when it came to all of these little things, I'd say that's creative for me because I know I could switch off.
Yeah.
So me in a Dunelm sale I was happy. I was dead happy. I was like, yeah, this is me. This is my creative space. The other form of creativeness I would say is me speaking in front of you guys, me speaking with my mentors, with my clients and stuff. That would be my creative outlet because I'm able to use words. I'm able to use my skills, my knowledge, my expertise in helping that person on their mental health journey. So yeah, that's how I use it.
Thank you so much for that. So what are some strategies creatively that you guys use and non-creatively that you guys use when you have creative blocks or when you don't have the motivation to do things? Like, what are things you do to help yourselves in those seasons?
I don't mind going first. Mind mapping. Literally, I have a whole book where none of it makes sense. But I feel like keeping everything up here just drives me crazy, especially having ADHD. Oh my gosh, my mind is already thinking like, what am I going to eat tonight? What am I going to do later? What I'm going to wear tomorrow to church? Like I'm already thinking 100 different things. Yeah. So mind mapping, I can just kind of put everything onto the piece of paper. And it just really helps for it to make sense. So I can kind of just like link the dots like, oh, actually like that's a priority or actually I don't need to focus on that anymore or whatever it is. Like everything in my brain by just putting it on paper helps me to be like, okay, let me refocus on this or that or whatever it is. So I think sometimes just getting everything out of there can help.
That's a good start.
I'd say when I have a block, so I'm coming from experience now because running a mental health service and then dealing with like NHS commissioners and university leads, you have this sense of like, you hit a wall, you hit like, am I doing enough? And I also have my own merchandise, so journals. So I put my work and my creativeness in that. If I have a block though, I don't stay in it too long. So I would say, okay, a few hours in the day, I'm going to sit in it. I'm going to sit in it and see where that takes me, because if I keep blocking it, if I keep pushing it, I'm not going to go anywhere with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes dance it out, truthfully, just dance it out in your room, blast some music and just dance out the funk. And drive. So I'm a very big driver. So if I go on a long drive, put my music on, put my windows down and just have time to say, okay, where is it? Where's the blockage? Because sometimes it's not even from me. It's because I'm thinking so much about what's going on around me and I'm fixated on somebody else's issue that isn't even my own. And then when I realize that, I kind of say, okay, now I'm back to refocusing. I come back to my alignment, come back to my daily goals, come back to my daily tasks. Yeah. And it comes down to being like productive, especially if you have those blocks. Yeah.
That's really good.
I love to compartmentalize. So if I break this question down into like my work life, so I'm a gemologist, so I do a lot of valuation work around gemstones and artisanal mining and ethical gem trading and so on and so forth. When it comes to having a block, or for example, like a customer will bring you a gemstone and identification is a problem, or you come across so many different things. I love to leave. Like I will literally get up. Once the client leaves, I can't leave on the client and say, okay, once the client's gone, I'll get up and I'll leave and I'll go do a walk, or I'll purposefully just try to, similar to you guys, just to energize the brain or stuff. Another thing that I like to do is to just write blandly, just literally just write what I'm thinking, what random thoughts I can write about, and then as I'm writing, I feel like my subconscious brain might be working on the problem, and I'm giving myself that space to breathe. In essence, I think a lot of times when you put focus or stress onto something, it becomes a bit hard to actually look at the problem just from a point of view where you're not clouded with different things. For poetry, I love efficiency, and sometimes that's toxic to myself. Whereby if I don't write a poem, I'm thinking, oh, Ayan, man, like you fell off. That's it. Raps, like it's game over, or what's going on, and so many stresses I put on myself. But I recall a friend of mine once said to me, when you have a writer's block in poetry, it's because you're experiencing life. And you draw poetry from life. Mm-hmm. So this is the canvas that you need to be able to draw from. So let it be and let it come naturally. And in that time, just divert your energy to elsewhere. So I definitely think I like to give it space and to come back once I feel as though I'm ready. Yeah, I suppose that's what I do.
Can I add to that? I was going to say, can I add to that? Because I went, when you mentioned about writer's block, so I went on to Eventbrite, and there was this whole creative session in the Hippodrome, and there was basically creative minds getting together, overcoming their writer's block. It could be scripts, it could be raps, it could be anything that was creative for them. For me, I just wanted to be in that space. So I don't do anything that is on that level, but being able to be around people who are on that level and help you overcome those blockages helps a lot. Yes. So even just finding spaces like similar to the setting that we're in now, being in spaces with like-minded people genuinely helps, because it shifts your perspective on things for sure.
100%.
100. I just wanted to add it, like the richest people do not work like 9 hours a day because their brain can't work 9 hours a day. So they'll spend a lot of the day just like reading or going for walks or doing anything that's really not seen as creative, but that's where they get their best ideas. And I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves that, if we're not working on our business if we're not up at 6 o'clock in the morning going to the gym and then working on our business and then doing this, if we don't have a 6 to 9 and then a 9 to 5 and like we're not doing enough. And I think sometimes, like last week, I took a week of annual leave. I have not done that in 6 years.
Well done to you.
I know, literally. Well, it was the best thing. I was able to update my website. I was able to do all these little stuff that I'd been putting off. Why? Because I'd been putting so much pressure on myself that, I need to do so much in my own business and I need to do so much at work and all this other kind of stuff. But I think sometimes when we just stop and allow ourselves to actually just think, no thoughts, that's actually what can help our creative block and actually just help us with what we're doing as well.
That's really good. That's really good, honestly. I think it's really interesting how you said just being in an environment where some people are experiencing similar things, but overcoming it together is definitely a key point, not just like writer's block, but also mental health as well. Similar things, just being in an environment where people are not just living with the problem, but also actively trying to walk towards a solution. My next question for you guys is it possible to balance the need to be creative with the pressure of being productive? And are the two in conflict with each other?
Okay, so my other panelists might not like me for my answer for this one, so I'm going to be very tentative. So being in a creative space requires you to use a part of your mind, so the imaginative part, that creative.
Yeah.
But if you stay in that too long, you're not dealing with the realities sometimes of your situation.
Yeah.
So if you stay in a creative space for so long and then you're in that zone, but then let's just use real life examples. Let's just say bills come into play, or, family requiring something from you, or life is requiring something. Sometimes you push that away. And then when you come out of that space, the capacity for you to deal with it isn't there. So I think when it comes to balancing, you do need to have some sort of routine or schedule to say, these are my hours or these are my days where, okay, I'm going to give that time or space to be creative and put all my energy into that. But this is the time where I need to handle life situations so that stuff doesn't pile on top of you. I think it is possible to balance. It is possible to be creative and be productive. Yeah. I just don't think, me personally, don't know if you guys want to disagree, but you can't push for one side. You have to have some sort of synchronicity in the both. What are you guys saying?
So I don't believe in balance. I believe in prioritizing. I think you can't get a balance of life. How am I supposed to balance work with creativity and friends? I can't balance. I have to prioritize. So when you prioritize, actually, this is maybe for the day, maybe for the week, maybe for the month, maybe for the year, but it is about prioritizing. What do I need to prioritize right now when it comes to my creativity? Is it taking time out? Is it sitting down and just writing out your thoughts? is it actually doing the stuff? Is it planning? Is it goal setting? Is it delivering? Is it content? Whatever it is, everything is a priority when it comes to your work, creativity, whatever you're doing. So I don't believe in balance. I believe in prioritizing.
Interesting. I think I definitely do agree with the whole prioritizing thing. Like, I like to write lists, or I have daily schedules, weekly schedules. But I think it depends on how you define productivity and creativity. And for me, I feel like it's not one or the other. Like, being a poet and going to perform or delivering workshops, that's productivity for me. Or being in a workspace where I have to creatively solve a problem, that's creativity for me. So I think for me, those two things are very interlinked. They're not different categories for me personally.
Yeah.
So, and the whole balance thing is absolutely right. I think in essence, anything you do in life is good to look at your balance and what you're putting your energy into and what you feel most burnt out from and so on and so forth. But for me, being creative is productive and being productive is creative. And I can't differentiate those two things in my work life or day life. So it's just about balancing life in general, holistically, I would say.
Okay, definitely understand. I feel like we got 3 different answers here. We got 3 different answers here.
Balance, prioritizing, productivity.
Yes, but I can see how all 3 answers actually do come into play with each other. So I understand what you mean, that there isn't, I think it just comes down to what you have in your life and prioritizing it correctly, of course, depending on what you have in your life, and finding a balance. You know how they say work-life balance. If you're a student, you still need a life, even though they don't know it, but like you still need a life. I think my next question is like how do you maintain your own voice in a collaborative setting? When you collaborate with other companies or other creatives, how do you make sure that your own voice is still heard, and what are challenges that you may face in those environments?
I haven't faced a challenge as of yet, but what I would say, when I'm working collaboratively with organizations, people in that collaborative space, I ensure my intentions are set from the beginning. So if I'm coming to a space, what are my intentions to be, or what the goals and the aim, does it align with me? And ensuring that alignment is there. Because when you are voicing yourself, or when you are using your voice to help people or support people or guide people in a different way, it's very important that you be intentional with that, and you align yourself with those collaborative spaces and ensure that your voice is heard. That's me in a nutshell.
I was going to say, I'm just going to add to that, like 100% everything you've said. And I think understanding, like, what is your purpose in this collaboration?
Yeah.
So for me, like, a lot of the things I do is around mentoring. And we all do the same kind of mentoring, but we all do it differently. We all serve a different purpose in that industry. So I think I've never had a problem as well, but I think it's just understanding what can we bring to the table separately, even if we are in the same space. Because at the end of the day, we could all sit here in the same industry, but we're all going to do it very differently. We're all going to have different personalities, and we're all going to work a very different way. So every person could want us in this room for a different reason. So I think just, understanding what your purpose is in that collaboration and how it serves each and every person.
I agree. And I think for me, I'm very passionate about this, in the sense of, I believe if you don't stand for anything, you fall for everything. And you need to be set, and it's quite hard, and I understand that life has its tribulations, but you need to be set in, what do you stand for? What are your morals? What are your thought processes? What is your voice? What is, in essence, what are you bringing to the table? And when I collaborate with organizations, there's always little nuances, right? There's always funders who provide funding for something, and they have their own viewpoints. And then, for example, recently I got invited somewhere abroad to do a keynote speech, and there was nuances around, like, they tried to tell me, like, don't say some of these things or stay away from some of these things. And I'm just like, if you want me to collaborate as Ayan Aiden in your project, then you want Ayan Aiden. You don't want a dimmed down Ayan Aiden. You don't want an Ayan Aiden that you can mold and sculpt to fulfill your prospects or whatever it is. So I'm very strong, and it's active. Nothing in life is just something passive. No, but like, we all are in situations, whether or not in uni when you have collaborative projects, or even in the family when you're working on something with your siblings and stuff, right? You work with people, but I think it's important to be active in ensuring, wait a minute, does it serve me? is what I believe in being put across in this conversation. Is my voice being heard? And if not, then to step out and see why that is the case and challenge those things. Because at the end of the day, there's only one of each of us in the existence of humanity. And if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. And I really do believe that.
Can I just add to that in terms of just like, I know a lot of times when we're trying to build our brand, I'm very heavy on personal brand, but when we're trying to build our personal brand, sometimes we don't do things because we're like, if we say this or do this, they're not going to give us the opportunity. But actually, you standing for that particular thing and not doing certain things and doing certain things because that's who you are is actually the reason that you will be picked for more stuff than actually trying to just do what they want or fit into the box that they want to. So stand up for who you are. And I've learned that as well, because sometimes I would be like, actually, you know what, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna do this, but I'm not gonna shine as Belinda Core. I'm just gonna, be who they want me to be. But what's the point of that? Because then I'm not showing who I am. I'm not able to engage with the audience. I'm not able to do any of that because I'm just being who you want me to be. Be who you are, and I promise you will get the opportunities that you deserve.
100%. I think it comes with the patience also and having like a mindset. Sometimes it can be very defeating. I know for myself as a creative, when like I want an opportunity and then I see like, ooh, that goes against my faith or my belief or my morals, like, but I'm in a sticky situation and the money will be good.
It's true.
It's like, I definitely know. It's just also really believing in yourself, really, and just being patient and allowing the right things to come for you at the right times. Because you'll be a lot more prouder doing it, knowing that aligns with your beliefs. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, thank you so much for that. I agree with a lot of what was said. So my next question is more about the self-care part of how do you guys go about your life? You all sound very busy. So what are like effective ways that you guys use to like manage your stress, or when things get maybe very overwhelming? I know people spoke about poetry and going on walks, but like what are other ways? Because I know a lot of people just, when those things don't work for you, because sometimes what you usually do doesn't always work. So where do you go from there?
Catch flights, not feelings. Travel, honestly, like get out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you'll get so stuck in your ways that you're not realizing there's a whole big world out there. There are so many people out there looking after themselves in so many different ways. And I think hearing the other women on the panel today, you can tell that they have an abundance of a schedule on all of these different things. And the thing that keeps me maintained is my morning routine. If I'm not saying my affirmations, if I'm not doing my gratitude journal, if I'm not praying, if I'm not moving, then I will feel it in my body. And it's having your routine that works for you. I have an abundance of clients and mentors. They have different routines because it works for them. So it's knowing what's working for you, how are you looking after yourself. One thing that I do, the first thing that I do actually in one of my first sessions is a self-care plan. So looking at the 7 elements of the self, and then looking at how you're looking after yourself, and then what you could be possibly doing. And then I have done that for myself. There's areas that I haven't started I think when it comes to family and that kind of personal life, it overwhelms because you don't have as many boundaries as you do with family as you do out in the outside world. So taking care, and where is it that an element of your life that you're not looking after yourself in? That's how I look after myself in my management of my day. What you guys?
I would add to the routines. I think having routines is really important, and that could be even like routines for like just certain things, like maybe how you wash your hair, or what you do before you go to sleep, or how you wash your dishes. Any like routines, I think, just make everything so much easier for the brain and for you. Self-care is something I've really struggled with for many years, because it wasn't a priority to me. It was just like me to the side. I need to do everything else. And I've realized recently just implementing their routines has really, really helped. Because now my mind kind of just does things like by habit. When you have routines, it's just by habit. So you just kind of do it without thinking. But for me as well, like I think dressing up, like, you know, giving that extra like 10 minutes in the morning just to, you know, slick the hair and, you know, put on a nice outfit. I think when you look good to yourself, you feel good and you can do good.
Yeah.
I know when I rock up to work, I haven't made no effort. I know I'm not being productive. And I think to me, dressing up is self-care. So I would say the routines and feeling good is self-care.
I definitely agree with that. If I look good, I feel good. If I feel good, I look good. You know, I definitely do agree with that. For me, I think I'm not going to sit here and cap to any of you guys. I still struggle with trying to ensure that I still have me time. I think one thing, especially when you're someone who just wants to do well in life and just wants to go get it, you fall into this toxic thing of delayed gratification, which is good for work. But delayed gratification in regards to your happiness is never a good thing. And for me at the moment, one thing I've done is I've identified the little things that make me happy. Do you know what I'm saying? If I want that extra donut, I'm gonna go get it. Do you know what I'm saying? I love traveling as well, by the way. And I love the thrill of just going somewhere solo and the unknown and so when I feel like my tank's low, I'm sorry, I'm booking a ticket for tomorrow morning. I'm out of here and I'll deal with it later. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's just the little things, and to ensure that we're not promised tomorrow. Tomorrow is not a guarantee to anybody sitting here in this room. So if you can, and only you are responsible for your happiness, not your siblings, not your partner, not your parents. You have the reins for your own happiness. So I think understanding that and ensuring that today, whilst I'm still breathing, to do little things like spend that extra time with family. Because sometimes I used to leave 7 a.m. in the morning, come back 11 p.m. at night and not see my siblings or my parents for 3-4 days straight. And it's like, to ensure that, you know, today actually I want to chill, broski. Like let's slap on some food, let's chill, vibe, and that fills my tank. And one last thing I'm gonna say is when you are happy and fulfilled and you're putting yourself first in your personal life, that echoes and reflects in your professional life. And it's important to recognize that. So yeah, if nowadays I'm like, anything for you, princess. I love to treat myself now. Yeah.
I'm going to just add to it quickly and take it a little bit deeper. And I know we've just touched on kind of the surface of self-care.
Yeah.
But taking it back to one of my mentees who lost her brother to suicide. And she was also in her last year of university. And watching her grow to see how she looked after herself and being able to hold her in that space was real, because grief is a real thing, loss is a real thing.
Yeah.
How do you have that, survivor's guilt? So how are you, like, so many things has happened around you, but how are you looking after yourself? And one thing is consumption. So who are you listening to? What are you listening to?
100%.
What are you intaking? What foods are you intaking? Because there's no point of me here sitting to you and saying, yeah, it's okay, just look after yourself, but eat shit. Now, do you know what I mean? You can't be sitting there consuming nonsense or listening to nonsense and then expecting your thoughts to resonate with that, because you are in control of your thoughts, feelings and emotions, but how you look after them is a reflection on how you look after yourself. So even in the most deepest of situations when life has lifed you, that's when it's important to take care of what you're consuming in your day. For real.
Can I just add to the deepness?
Yeah.
So again, obviously with the self-care stuff, if you don't take care of yourself, no one else is going to take care of you.
100%.
This year, May, I went on a cute little solo holiday. I came back and I had sun poisoning. And I had sun poisoning.
Okay.
Yeah, sun poisoning, something I never heard of. But I came back with 50 blisters on my leg, couldn't walk, and it just kept coming back for like 2 months. So I had like 3 lots of antibiotics. At that point, working a full-time job and still having to run the podcast studio and do this and still having clients email me and stuff. At that point, by force, I had to take care of myself, which was more than just popping up my leg, but actually learning, Belinda, you need to be the priority in everything that you do.
Yeah.
And it forced me to slow down. And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're all creative, everything is dependent on you.
Yeah.
And if you can't do something, then things stop. Let's probably not relate to the self-care, but what we need to do as creatives and entrepreneurs and whatever is implement systems and processes. So when things like that happen, things are able to kind of just run themselves. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and creatives who are in their 40s, 50s, who are still going so hard because everything is dependent on them. If they are not well, things do not run. And we have to learn to implement other things, because that's self-care as well. Implementing the processes, getting a team, whatever, that is self-care as well, as well as doing the little face mask and stuff. But where we're able to allow our business to sometimes and our creative stuff to grow without us, but so we can work on the business, that is self-care too. And that's what I really learnt from, because I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Come back, have sun poisoning. Who has sun poisoning? Am I weird? But I realised at that point, actually, no, Belinda, you really do need to implement the processes and get a team. So yeah, definitely looking for a team now.
Yes. I just really want to second that, and I think it's self-love to the future you. You need to create systems around you that are sustainable in your absence. Because if you want to, I'm big on legacy, and I think if you want to leave something behind, you have to ensure that what you're creating is not centered around you, but can work without you there. And I definitely agree with that. And just to second you as well, I think once again, routine is important. Like morning routines, systems. I think when someone doesn't have a system or doesn't have a routine, and I see it firsthand, because I work a lot with the Somali community, with refugees that have just come, or just families that need help and so on and so forth. And I see that when people don't have systems in their lives or create routine, everything just becomes blurred, right? You're waking up at a certain time, you're sleeping at a certain time. You're the rat race. And you lose your passion, you lose your why, you lose your drive. And I think to self-love, to future you, is to sit down and say, what do I want to do? This is what I want to do. How does it look like to me in the morning? How does it look like to me in the nighttime? And breaking down those larger goals, because sometimes you can sit there and be like, oh my God, I want to create a 6-figure business. And it's like, okay, cool. But how does that look in your day-to-day today? Like, what do you need to do today to make sure that you get? So yeah, I definitely do agree with the amazing co-panelists.
Yeah, I was just about touching on the systems and stuff. So taking it a bit deep again, if anybody has suffered with the point of, taking their own life or suicidal thoughts, that's your low, that's your baseline. So that's where you're at crisis.
Yeah.
Working in crisis and, with people, you have to have your own crisis plan. What is your support plan? What is the point of where, okay, if I know I'm experiencing this in my life, who am I going to reach out to? If I know that this is going to happen in my life, what's going to happen here? That's on you. Yes, as mental health professionals, we can support you and guide you and build you that, but that's you reaching out to us. Whereas if you want that online stuff of how do I have that crisis prevention plan, or what's my support plan, that's all on you. I have that from the beginning, because I know that life can life you at any single point. So that pedestal that you put yourself upon, or as entrepreneurs that we hide ourselves in this whole high regard, how are you building those bricks and having those support plans, crisis prevention plans, all these self-care plans? Again, that's planning your life. So how are you implementing that in your systems and your daily routines? So that's really important too.
Definitely. Oh my gosh, a lot of piggy banking here. We love it. I like to highlight a point that you've all kind of brushed upon. There's a real importance to your surroundings. Like if you have the right support system, the right people around you, then that can only build you up or break you down. So that surroundings might not just be just the physical surroundings, but who are you following on social media, what music you listen to and all of that definitely plays a huge role in my experience, really. We're going to move into imposter syndrome. So I'm just really curious, what's your understanding of imposter syndrome, and what do you guys think is the root cause of it, and have you ever dealt with it? And if yes, how did you overcome it?
I think we've all dealt with it. Imposter syndrome. I feel it at least once a week. But I think for me, imposter syndrome is feeling like, not that maybe I don't deserve to be in this room, but maybe I'm not qualified to be in this room. And even now, when I know in my brain I'm qualified to do it, and I can speak about the stuff, but it's just that doubt, which I think stems from fear.
Yeah.
And I think, that's it. If someone wants to take up from me.
I think it's twofold. So it's an intrinsic and extrinsic thing. So internally, we all have had traumas in a lifetime, whether it's someone snatching a sweet from you when you were little, or your dad beating on you, or sexual abuse, domestic abuse, however the trauma may have had growing up.
Yeah.
That is how you've had your behavioural pattern throughout your life, or like your future in your life and relationships, etc. So when you come to a point in life where something has happened, something negative has happened, let's just say you go on stage now and no one claps for you, you're thinking, oh, that's your fear, then that's your biggest fear, that's what scares you. And all the negativity, all the critique, all the criticism that you have had growing up in your childhood that you're not good enough, that seeps in then. That's an internal thing. So you've created that dialogue, you've created that narrative in your mind because of the traumas that you've experienced growing up.
Yeah.
Externally, I would say is your environment. So how supportive is your environment? And if it's just you, how well are you sitting in your own company? Because 9 times out of 10, you've got to separate to elevate. If you want to remove imposter syndrome from your life and actually understand your innate ability, it's sitting comfortable within yourself and not having that external validation. It's increasing your internal validation and understanding that what is it that I can do as an individual to improve my self-esteem, to improve my self-confidence, and 3, to improve your self-awareness. What was the last bit of the question? You asked me a little bit more. There was a second part.
Oh, your understanding of it, what's the root cause of it, and how, if you've experienced it, how have you dealt with it?
The root cause of imposter syndrome is doubt. It's self-doubt, when self-doubt creeps in because you have doubted what you are set out to do. How I have dealt with imposter syndrome in the past is I went on a free course on Instagram. You think those are a joke? Go on those free courses and those free and those masterclasses. They go out their way to help you build skills.
Yeah.
When you start strengthening those skills, that's when your confidence builds, because you're not just relying on you, then you're relying on your expertise, you're relying on those skills, and you're building again those blocks for you to be able to do what you set out to do.
Yeah.
When you have experienced something in life where, let's just say you've gone on stage again and nobody claps for you, you need to be able to process that. Don't block it, because if you let that handle you, then you're not meant to be on that stage.
Yeah.
But why would you let one experience take you away from that?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely twofold. It's an interesting thing. It's increasing your internal validation, how you can improve and get rid of imposter syndrome. So I have been blessed to be a part of Brains magazine as a collaborator. And one of the things yesterday when I was asked to even speak about imposter syndrome was those 12 steps of how to remove it. Yeah. And one of them is setting those small goals. Now, don't go out there and think that you can take on the world. You can, but just not tomorrow, because you just learned how to do it. So small goals, otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure. If you set yourself a big goal and it doesn't happen, you're going to hold yourself to a high accountability. And that word accountability again, your successes are yours, your losses are yours. You have to take full ownership and full authority over them. Otherwise, you're giving it to somebody else. And again, that imposter syndrome then creeps in. One thing that I learned from that I think it was like a 5-day course, it was just like an hour out of the day, is your affirmations, believing in your words, believing in what you're saying that you are. If you're waking up in the morning and you're saying that, you know what, I feel like this, I feel gosh, I feel so really crappy today, I can't do it. That's your tone. Yeah. So as hard as it is, when Belinda said about productivity and priorities, it's understanding what your productivity, how productive you can be in your priorities in that day to improve your goals, set out what you've had to do, and then come back to the drawing board if anything else fails.
Yeah.
So just a little story. I like to tell little stories. But so when I was probably like 20, I got into an industry called network marketing. And I was always all right at speaking, like, all right. And then something happened. I don't know what happened. When I was like 21, I got like this stutter and my words started getting all like jumbled up. So every time I would speak, I wouldn't be able to like speak properly. And then I started having to stand on stages and in front of hundreds of people. And imagine that for me, like I've been fine all my life and now this has just come out of nowhere. And now I basically have to do this for a living. And when I tell you the imposter syndrome of I shouldn't be up here speaking, why are you picking me? I can't even speak properly. But I think in that time, just the way you speak to yourself, like, I'm in this place for a reason. I've been given this opportunity for a reason. At the end of the day, how you feel, your confidence, your fears, no one will know that unless you tell them or you show them. Now, I know for us as well, like, you know, we sit on panels, we speak, you speak with clients, you deliver talks, everything. And there's times where we feel like we shouldn't be having this conversation. We don't deserve to be having this conversation. Again, if you go in there with the confidence and how you speak to yourself before that conversation happens, or you deliver a talk or panel, whatever it is, no one will be none the wiser. And I think sometimes you do have to fake it till you make it. And I've had to do that several times. I remember I spoke at a school and I had to speak to every single student in that school, which was like 1,500. That's the first time I'd ever done that. And I remember before I went in there, I can't do this. I can't do this at all. Like, what am I doing? I think I was like 22. I was like, what am I doing? I can't do this. But I went in there saying, do you know what? I'm in this place for a reason. And I said, I'm going to walk out of that room having impacted at least one person. And that's it. I'm happy with that. And I went in there and I had so much fun. And I feel like when you realize being yourself is the most important thing. When it comes to imposter syndrome, you feel like you don't deserve to be there. But actually, by being yourself, that's what people will fall in love with. And it will help you to get even nearer to the goals that you want to achieve. Believe me, the imposter syndrome will go. Because you deserve, telling yourself you deserve to be in that room regardless. You deserve to be sitting in that panel. You deserve to have this opportunity. You can do absolutely anything, but it is how you speak to yourself.
Yeah, it's your why. It's why you're doing it. It comes down to why.
Yeah.
I definitely do agree. And people always say to me when I'm going on stage and stuff, you don't look nervous. I'm like, damn, I'm scared as hell. Do you know what I'm saying? So imposter syndrome is definitely something I deal with daily. And I love the way that you broke it down when it comes to the intrinsic and the external. And I think for me, I've always been scared of ego. Like, ego scares me. So the way that I would self-talk to myself is after the mountain, I'd be like, okay, cool, you've done that mountain, but you got so many more mountains to go, like, chill out, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes I think it's about creating that balance and altering your internal voice, right? And I started very, very young. Like, when I was 17, 18, I was being propelled into these spaces with ministers and so on and so forth. And I think naturally you then question, why me? Well, what am I doing here? And one of the things that really helped me is I had a mentor, and she said to me one day, it was after a HS2 consultation, she goes, Ayan, everybody puts their pants on the same way in the morning. One leg in, one leg in. There's no other way that you put your pants on. And it was her telling me that all of these people, when you strip away their accolades, are human. They're just as human as you, and you share human characteristics. So when you walk in there, sometimes as well, mentally strip away the accolades or the prestigiousness or the platform that you place on someone. And the last point I'm going to make is to echo also, is to just be real with yourself in regards to, I feel like sometimes when I feel imposter syndrome, it's like, oh, I haven't got there yet, or I haven't done that. But it's to be very firm in knowing who you are. Like, you're Ayan Aiden, you've done this, you want to do this is what you need to do to get there. And it's okay, these people might be ahead of you in the journey. But the fact that you're sitting in the same room as them shows that you're on the right path. Don't slow down, but do you know what I'm saying? Like, make sure you get stuff done. So I think it's altering that internal voice within yourself and how you treat yourself and how you look at yourself as well. And also just humanizing other people. Because I promise you, no prime minister, no executive puts their pants on differently. Do you know what I'm saying? So
just
definitely.
a bit of a cheat code touching on what Ayan said. It's when you're saying about imposter syndrome, it's self-doubt. So the best way to remove doubt is action. What is it that you're actually going to do then about it? Because if you just stay in that doubt, you're going to perpetuate it, and it's going to manifest into so much more. So it's literally like a doorway for everything else to creep in. So don't think of it, don't overcomplicate things. Just keep it very, very simple. Okay, that's what you're doubting yourself about. So what can you do? What can you physically do? I was asked a question on a different podcast of, people say be strong. What does it mean to be strong? Be is a verb, it's to do something. So you have to be strong in doing that. So you have to be able to move. If it's even coming on, like, for example, we're on a panel today, if I felt like, oh, you know what, I don't feel good enough, or I don't feel this enough, just do it and try. There is nothing else more to do it. You got to be able to rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
There's something I quickly wanted to add on, and it's the external thing again. And I think it's having mechanisms whereby sometimes, and I'm sure you can all relate, but as a Black Muslim woman, when you're in certain rooms, that imposter syndrome is propelled further by people. And then also being young as well, you get all of these oldies saying stuff. And it's like, sorry, I keep it very straight. I'm sorry. But it's to have that mechanism whereby when you encounter these things, to be strong and to not allow that to sway your internal voice. And whether that's having little things, like, for example, if I go into a meeting, a couple of weeks ago, I was in a meeting with some government officials from Somalia, and something like the little microaggressions didn't pop up. I excuse myself, I'm just going to excuse myself to the restroom. I take a few seconds outside, I talk to myself a little bit, be like, Ayan, don't let nobody trick you out your position.
Don't let them draw you out.
You got here for a reason. And then you walk back in with your head held high, and that's when you, having those little things, for you it could be eating a certain sweet or writing down a certain thing, but just having those little things that when someone outside tries to determine your internal state, to never let that happen.
Yes. Could even say amen to that.
Just a little, that's literally about to say the amen part. But I would say for myself as well, like being a woman of faith, being a Christian, I think my faith also helped me a lot as well. Saying my little prayer beforehand, keeping it real and saying, God, put me in the rooms that I need to be in. And if I'm in this room, I'm meant to be here.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think that also helps me as well. Like, God is not going to put me anywhere that I don't deserve or shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Cool.
Touch on these two again.
Yeah.
So I've noticed something in the past 8 years that I've been in practice. And those individuals who have a grounding of faith or spirituality or have a reliance on God tend to bounce back from any adversity quicker than most. And I believe, so this is my personal perspective on things, is that it's a reliance on God's promise, not yours. So when you are relying on what God's word is and what God's promise is, your value and stuff, you're like, okay, well, that's just flesh, and that's where I'm bound. That's just something I need to work on, but I know what's promised for me. So that's something that I've noticed in my practice as well. So if you are constantly struggling with self-doubt, if you are constantly struggling with these kind of internal negative dialogues, that's something internal then that you have to find strength in.
Honestly, thank you so much for your honesty, vulnerability, and your wisdom. If we put our hands together for our beautiful panel of boss-ass ladies. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.